This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, we are recording right now. So, perfect. Now, to explain a little bit further, we have an unlimited, yeah?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay.
I think
Okay.
she's not talking to me.
You're unmuted, Fiona.
Sorry.
It's fine. Okay, so basically the idea is I have here in the params tab. Okay, first of all, there are tons of stuff here that I'm not going to explain one by one. We are going to start slowly. So whenever I have something from the params tab on the canvas, I just can click here. I just can select something, a point, a vector, a circle, a curve, doesn't matter. I will have a node. This will be called a component. So as you see, I have two small half semicircles at the end and beginning. The ones on the left side are inputs and ones on the outside are outputs. We are going to see that better with the examples. But what it does is basically when I right click on it, I have some options, but the most important is I can set one point.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, I can set multiple points. And when I click on set one point, it directs me to the Rhino. Then I can click anywhere and it's going to create a point. So I can move this point in Rhino because it's now a Rhino object. But when I select this, I will see that in Rhino as well. And it's no longer orange, it's now grayed out, which means it's working perfectly. Light gray means working perfectly and previewed. Now, as you see, the dot is a small x in this case. A different object is defined also differently. Let's, for example, take a line and set one line. I click and I set a line. And as you see, it represents as a red line here. And when I click on it, when I select it, it's green. Now, whatever I do in Grasshopper stays in Grasshopper. They are not actually Rhino elements that I can select. They have no connection unless I bake them in. Baking means I right click and I come here, say bake. I select a layer and I click OK. And right now it's a Rhino object. But it's no longer this one. What I select right now is no longer connected to this. This is a separate line. So I delete that. That's the main idea by selecting a geometry in Grasshopper. The preview can be a wireframe. In this case, it doesn't change because they are 2D elements, or you can just completely turn it off. But I recommend you to use it in shaded view so that you can see whatever you have. Now, right now we saw examples of how to define a point or a line by ourselves, just drawing original way, I would say. But what if I want to create a point from certain coordinates, for example? First of all, either you can go to the menu, and if you know where it is, you can choose what you want. In many cases, I don't know where they are, so I just use this method instead. I double click on the canvas and it gives me enter a search keyword thing. So here I can type in what I want. In many cases, you may not even know what you can get, what the component is, but you just type in what you need and you see if that's an option. So I want to have a point and I want to construct a point. In this case, construct is a word that you would go with, that if you want to create something, construct, and I have the construct point component here. I can select that, and now I have one component that lets me have 3 inputs as X, Y, and Z coordinates, and one point output as that I can use as a point if I want to do anything else with that. So the next thing I need would be number sliders, like a number. I need something to control the coordinates. So I double click again, and I don't know what kind of numbers I need, what kind of tools I can use. I'm just typing out the number, and I click enter. And as you see, it created a number slider. Now, number slider is one of the inputs that when you go to params and click on the input, is one of the first one and the most used one, number slider. A panel is somewhere you can type something. For example, I can write under it here as well, right, like this. I can choose here different things as well, like a control knob, which is the same thing. It's just you turn it. It's a more fun way, and it has different uses, but right now we don't need that. I will just keep it here now, the panel, and work on the number sliders. So I want to put this output, which is 39 right now, to the X coordinate. Now, as you see, let's look from top. As you see, it moves my point according to this distance. It's very simple idea. It's just there is a coordinate and I am defining that coordinate. I could just connect this one instead, and it's just 100. But this one I cannot control with a slider. I just need to type in. And here it is. So that's my X coordinate. And now I want to copy that and paste. You can do that with Control C, Control V, or you can hold it, press Alt, and drag it down. So I hold it with my mouse button, I press Alt, and leave it. So I connect one to X, one to Y, and one to Z. So in 3D, you can see I have a floating point right now, and I can change where it is however I want. Right now, I want to make the Z coordinate 0, so it lays on the XY plane, and change it. Right now, I am not showing this as something you should do, something we are going to continue with. I'm just trying to explain how the input and output idea mentality works. So basically, inputs are to control what I have as a component. And let's look at the output. I have a point. I can get this point thing that we had before. This time, instead of right-clicking and clicking set one point, I can just connect this, and this is now my point. And whenever I change this, it follows it as well. It's just exactly the same copy. The reason that we would do that is I can move this freely without actually moving this and seeing these lines everywhere, which can be really get messy. So in these tutorials, I will try to show you things that's organized way that you can actually better work with. So about organizing, if you have an OCD, like I have a little bit, you want to things aligned, like at least the lines are connecting like straight, if everything is in order. So basically, if I things like separated, I can select all of these. And as you see, I have right now a couple of buttons here that I can use to organize. So if I click on align at the top, I'm going to align them vertically. Then if I click on the left button, I'm going to align them to the left all together. Right now, because all of them selected, I can move them all together, and I'm going to place them like this. If I want to move them at the same horizontal line or vertical line, I click on them, I press shift and move any direction I want. So it's just basically either horizontal or vertical. Now, this was the first demonstration, and until here, do you have any questions? Was that clear?
Everything clear?
Great. So move these a little bit like this. And let's show something cool, that how to keep things organized in a very crowded file. That, as you see, I have a point here. I'm just going to copy paste and create one more point. And as you may realize, I don't see the difference. Like, they have the same symbol. Okay, they are right now the same object, but in many cases they might not be. So I right click on one, and it has a name, and I change this as P1 for point one, and I click on this use application setting, and then it creates a name. So it actually doesn't create a name, it just shows the name. So you can circle through these, but I like to use them like this, mixed. Some of them showing up the symbols like here, X, Y, Z, or some of them are using the names. So this is P2, for example. That's very important because when your file gets crowded, you want to know what you're actually attaching to. So another thing, originally your Grasshopper file may not be showing X coordinate, Y coordinate, point as full names, but instead they are first letters like X, Y, Z, and P. That's actually from the display. And there is this draw full names tab. As you see, when I turn this off, I just show them like this. And when I turn this on, I see all the names. Honestly, I like to use it this way because I don't have to know every component and what inputs they have, what outputs they have. But in case it's like this, I can come over it with my mouse and it gives me what it is. Another thing that's very important is throw fancy wires. So let's deactivate that. And let me give you an example. This part you don't have to follow. I'm just going to create something fast to show. So right now, as you see, I created a series of numbers that I have 10 steps from 0 to 9. And every step is like addition to 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, and it goes like that. So I have multiple elements. Right now, as you see, all my lines are one gray straight line. If I turn on the draw fancy wires, as you see, these are straight lines, but this is a double line because there are multiple items here. We have 10 values here, not one. Here I have one value. Here I have one value. And if I put two values, which can break the component, well, it didn't. I have two values. And it's a great example because now it's dashed line. And that means I have not one, but two lists. So I have two parts. If I change this, as you see, I made it 4. So I have here in the second list 4 items. If I look here, I still have 10. If I make it less, it changes. So what this line means that I have more than one list in there. So it still shows that I have 10 locally defined values. So I have 6 and 4, but they are not one list, they are two lists. Right now, you may find it confusing. What's the difference? That's why I'm not going to explain it now. We are going to see that with an example. So let's keep it here. Yeah, these are the lines. If I don't want the fancy wires, then it's boring and it's actually I don't know, maybe some people prefer this way, but I prefer it displayed. It's however you liked it. And the other way is draw icons. So when I turn this off, I see the names. That can be good, especially for tutorials, because, or like screenshots. So if I don't know what that symbol is, like if I don't know what this symbol is, just by showing it with the draw icons, it's series. Okay, now I can go here and type series, and yes, it's series. I know it. Now, this what's written here, you can change. You can right click on it, the same idea with the point, and you can make it a different name. Let's make it serial or anything else. Hello. So that's the difference between the draw icons display or name display. You can use it however you want, but I like to use it as draw icons. And then if I want to see the name, I right click here and I change it. So I only see the ones that I want as the names. Until here, there's any questions? No.
I have one, sorry.
Perfect.
So this file, is this separate from the Rhino file that you created, or are they connected?
Yes, it's separated. You have to save it separately. So I go here, save, and here I can save it, this file. So that's a Grasshopper file. When I open my Rhino and open Grasshopper, I'm not going to see this file, even though if my Rhino file is saved in a certain way, it doesn't come together. So while you're uploading it to Tuvel, you should upload the Grasshopper file with it as well, not just the Rhino file. Otherwise, it can just be an empty Rhino file without anything, because Grasshopper, like I said, has representative items in Rhino that you see them, but they are not objects in Rhino.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? No.
Wait a second, I have a question.
Sure, Daria.
With this series tool, it doesn't let me connect two number slides to the last to the count point. Why would that be? So I can connect only one, but I cannot connect two. Like, it's canceling each other out.
Yes, sorry. Like I said, I didn't do that to follow me, but basically when I connect something, it disconnects the other one. To connect multiple ones, I start dragging. While I'm holding my mouse button, I press on shift and hold the shift and connect. So this time I can connect multiple items to the same input. Note that not every component lacks that. So some components break when you add multiple inputs into one input port. And if I want to disconnect something, I do the same from this time opposite side. And then I press Control, Steuerung, Control key, and do this. So they are no longer connected. Or I can right click and click disconnect and disconnect all. Now about the lines, I want to show one more thing. Let's say I have this, but I want to carry this all the way here because I have some components there, but it's really bothering me that these lines are coming all the way through my script, and I really don't want to see them. They are not really important to be visible. So I right click on it, I go to wire display. By the way, I right click on the input, not in the middle, on the input, and I go to wire display and I can select faint, which is a very thin gray line, but still doesn't do the job for me. Or I can go to hidden, which is like a Wi-Fi symbol. That's actually the same mentality. It's a Wi-Fi connection. And when I click on that, I see where it goes. So don't worry that you will lose where it goes. You will still see that, but only when you click on it. So you can make both of them hidden. and you won't see anything. So that was with the lines. And one more thing about the lines. Yes, I think it's the last thing. So if I have a line that's crossing path with something else, and I actually don't like them crossing, so I want to move this line a little bit down. So I just double click on the line and it creates a anchor point that I can move separately. I can also name this one too, however you want. And this is my anchor point. I think I can create multiple ones, yes. So these are all for organization, organizing your file to be more clear, to be nicer. So that's all about the lines. Now we can go into a little bit deeper stuff. And it was actually very fast. But before we continue, I want to show you one more thing. Under the params tab, I have utility. I click on that and I have bifocals. That's a very nice thing to have in the beginning. So when you put it at the top, you see the names of everything that you have, except number sliders and panels, obviously. But the other things you see. Let's turn this back. So you just need to take this bifocals and put it somewhere. That's it. Like, you don't have to connect it to anything. I think you can connect exceptions.
I'm sorry. Was it at util?
It's on under the params, it's util, and here bifocals.
I don't have it. I don't see it in there at all. Like the cherry picker is the first thing.
Which version of Rhino do you use?
7.
Interesting. Can you double click and write bifocals and see if anything comes up?
Nope.
Okay. In that case, let me then show this also now because I wanted to show something else too. There is a website called Food for Rhino. Basically, you can here get some Rhino plugins, Grasshopper plugins, etc. It's called literally food for as a number and Rhino. And here you can write bifocals. I always saw that as a plugin, and I always thought it always comes with the Grasshopper automatically because for me, I never installed this. So, but in case that you don't have, you can go here and you can download it. The latest version is 2017. You can download that. Don't worry that it says 4 and 5. It's highly possible that it's compatible with the higher versions as well. Yeah, I think I can just paste it to chat so anyone can go to the website easier. So yeah, if anyone else is having the same issue, that could be helpful. And of course, at that website, you can get, let me show that too, you can get other plugins, which are very useful, and I will suggest in later tutorials, not today. That's something like Pufferfish or Elephant, or we have the Lunchbox. Usually they are names of the bugs or animals. Pufferfish, kangaroo, honeybee, dragonfly, human, lunchbox. So for example, dragonfly, honeybee, honeybee and dragonfly, and we have the ladybug, which I don't see here right now. Yeah, here. These are for analysis and simulations, mostly specified on the physical properties or solar properties, like solar analysis, wind analysis, location analysis, energy analysis, such things. But they are very advanced and requires a set of extra knowledge that we usually don't learn in architecture that detailedly, but you can still develop those skills as well. Lunchbox, for example, is very useful. What I use mostly is to create some facades that using the panel tools that actually at the end of this tutorial series, that at least not today, but maybe next week, we are going to create some very interesting facade, and we are going to use Lunchbox, so you can download it prior. Human is also very nice, that I use a couple tools from here, like selection tools, item selector, for example, that when I connect, I can select which one I want here, such stuff. So right now you don't have to worry about them that much. I'm just showing that you know it exists. And yeah, at the end of this tutorial, by the way, like not today, but maybe today also, we are going to create our own tool, which I find very cool, that we can create our own toolbox here. And this is basically a tool that's created like a script, like this, nothing else, so nothing special. And you can just make it a tool from your script. So I delete out that. And now we can go into our exercise. Until here, there are any questions? No. So I just opened this to take reference if I forget something. But our main goal today is that I have a polygon like this, which I am going to use as parametric, so I can make it triangle, rectangle, pentagon, hexagon, whatever. And I don't want to create it from the center and scale it from the center, but I want to scale it from the baseline and change it from the baseline. Now, there is a component to do that, actually, like create something from the edge, but this is just an exercise to help develop some problem solving skills. And later on, we are going to turn this into our component. So I will just turn off the preview. Yes, let me show that too. If I select something, right click somewhere on the canvas, doesn't matter where, and if I click on preview off, I'm not going to see them anymore in Rhino. And I can turn on the preview as well. In this case, you see, we have lots of stuff. Now, I want to create a hexagon. That's my first task. Let's go. So I double click and I write hexagon. Now, in your case, you will not see hexagonal structure and these three items. These are from the Lunchbox. So if you don't have Lunchbox, you won't see them. You will see the polygon. That's correct. We are going to choose the polygon one because Grasshopper doesn't have tools for every graphical item like hexagon, heptagon, octagon. It's just as a polygon that you can give segment inputs and create different polygons. So let's look at our inputs. I have a plane that's right now word XY. And as you see, next to the plane name, there is a symbol, which is plane, this one. So you can also take some ideas here, what you should be putting in. So radius is a number. I come here, as in the primitives, I come here and there is a number. So that's the radius. Segment is an integer. That's correct. Because I cannot have segments like 10.5. I have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 1 and 2 doesn't work, but 3, 4, 5, 6, it has to be an integer. And the fillet radius is also a number like this. In this case, we are not going to use the fillet radius. I delete them. So to create my polygon, first I want a hexagon. So let's define that first. Oh, it's very small right now. Okay. So it's already a hexagon because the segments is defined as 6 originally. So I write here a number, let's say 5. So it's going to create a number slider. Now, if I press enter, I'm just going to create a slider between 0 and 10. Because it's between 0 and 10, that is a number, If I write here 11, it's going to create one between 0 and 100 to the next tenfold. So if I write here 101, it's going to be 1000. But if I want to give a specific value, so I want it to be minimum 3 because I cannot have less than 3 segments on a polygon, is smaller than my number. You can type X or anything. Well, don't type X, okay? And write your maximum number. So I want, in this case, 12. And when I click enter, I have between 3 and 12. The question is, can't I change it later on if I change my mind? You can just double click on the number slider and you can here define the minimum, which can even be less than 0. You can go with the negatives. You can change the maximum. You can define the range first instead of changing the maximum, or you can define which number you want. I can also define if it's an integer or if it's a floating point number with zeros on it, and how many zeros I want. I think I can go maximum 6. I never tried to go more, but maybe when you type in, for example, if I type 6, 7, well, I have 7. Good. So it works, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it works. So right now I'm going to use this from 3 to 12, and I connect this to the segments. So as you see now, when I change it, it changes the segment amount. So that's my input. So what you see, by the way, is this rasta here at the back, like this checkerboard thing. It's actually the plane. But just because our object is very small right now, the radius is 3. It just stays in the plane, which is a very small thing. So in this case, I want a radius, but I want it to be around like 300. I write 300, I connect it, and now I have a good large object. Now I can change my radius as I want to. And the radius can be also a floating number that I can give more specific numbers. When it's parametric, don't worry about that. If it's making some calculations like addition, subtraction, etc., it finds the numbers automatically, so you don't have to define them with floating numbers anyways. So that's the first task. And the plane. If I want to move my polygon wherever I want, I can connect it to a point. So I want to construct a point. I wrote point and go construct. So I want to give coordinates. Let's make them 2000. It's like this. Z, I want to leave it 0 right now. And I'm going to connect these. As you see, now I have a point here that I can move. And now I come here and type plane. Okay, I want a plane, but which kind of plane I want? I want it to be XY plane. I don't want to be XZ or ZY or anything else. I want XY because we are right now on the top view. That's my X, that's my Y. And then I connect this point as the origin, and then I connect this plane here. So as you see, my polygon went up there, and when I move my point, it's going to follow. Now let's keep them organized. Yep. Like this. So I think it was clear, but any questions about creating a polygon? No. Great. Now my task is that, okay, I created this polygon, and let's put it back on the 0, 0, 0, but I don't want it to be, first of all, turned in this direction or any direction. I want it to be always straight, one edge always on the horizontal line. First task, I want it to be sitting on this point, not taking it as the center point, but sitting on it. What can we do? Any ideas? How I can take this object and move it to this point from one edge? Any ideas? Like mathematically, not actually with the grasshopper. If you have to move this object in any kind of program, how would you move it?
Drag it.
Drag it. To drag it, what would you pick? I would pick the object
Plane.
first. Then I would either select the line, select a point, a corner, something that I can take as a reference, and I would drag it over to the point that I want to place it on. So that's what we are going to do actually. So I want to take this point here in the middle of this line, this edge. I want to take this point and move it here. So I know how much I need to move. That's my distance. And then I know where this point is. This is just in the middle of this line. So what do I have? I have a polygon, which is a curve. Which is a curve, and I have length, which is the total length of all edges, which is useless in this case. So first of all, I don't want to use it as a curve, but I want to use it as a B-rep. What is a B-rep? B-rep means boundary representations. So basically, it creates edges, vertices, and faces. So whenever I have an object, 2D, 3D, I have corners, I have edges, and I have faces. So right now I have a B-rep. When I connect my polygon to my B-rep component, which I just typed B-rep, I have it as a B-rep. Now I want to have its vertices, have its corners, edges, and faces. So I need to deconstruct it. So I have a B-rep and I want to deconstruct it. So I connect my B-rep as an input easily. And then I have faces, which is one locally defined value, which is this pinkish face. I have 5 edges because it's a pentagon. And I have vertices, which is 5, every corner. Now, when I create a panel by typing 2/ or quotation mark, I create a panel and I connect my edges, for example. And as you see, I have a list. That's an important word. I have a list of items. I have a list of 5 lines. Now, do I need all those lines? No, I need only one line. I want this line. And always, whatever my shape is, if it's a heptagon, I still want this line. One before the last one. I want the one before the last one. Always. I mean, you can take the 2 before the last one. It's up to you. But in this exercise, I want to take that one. It's important that you define which one you want prior. So we have a list, but I want to select one item from that list. So I double click, I type in list. I have lots of components now. I want one item from there. I want list item. Exactly that. So that lets me choose any component any part of this list. I connect this, and right now I have 5 values here. My index is right now 0. In this case, it's this one. And as you see, when I select it, this one, let me turn this off. This one is selected. Now, I create a number slider here, 0 to 6, let's say. And as you see, when I move this, I can move through my selections. Now, what did I say? Which one I want? I want one before the last one. So right now, this is the first one. This is the last one. To get the last one, I can, sorry, not -1, but I create a number slider and I go into the minus a little bit. And if I go to -1, as you see, it goes to the other direction. And I want -2. That's the second from last, always. Now, instead of putting a number slider, which we are not going to change at all again, I can just right click on the index, click on set integer, and I can write here -2. And right now it's automatically -2. I don't have to put any input. If I want to put multiple selections, if I want to select multiple elements, sorry, let's move it here. Yes. I can type here to set multiple integers, enter 3, enter 1, commit changes. Now I select 3 items. I think I might have changed it this way, so I make it that way. It can be overlapping in some way that I put 3 items. Anyways, I want to keep it as -2. That's what important is. Now, I selected my line. What
sorry.
else do I need now? Yes.
Wait, please. I have a question. What did
Yes.
you do so you can see only this line and you don't see everything else?
I selected other stuff.
Mhm.
I right click somewhere and I went preview off.
Oh, thank you.
If you go preview on, you will see them again. And I want to see my point as well. Yeah. So I have my line. And actually, let's make it official by typing in line and connect this here. You can also use curve. In many cases, I prefer to use curve because a line is a curve, but a curve is not a line. So it actually represents more stuff. So I want to use the curve. So I have my curve. What else do I need? Question.
Center.
Exactly. I need the middle point. I write here midpoint. Curve middle point. Well, that's too much. It's probably a plugin. So I write mid and curve middle comes. Sometimes it's better to start with the things you want instead of the component you have. Then you may get easier results. Just test it out by yourself. In some components this works, some not. So I have the curve midpoint. I connect my curve and I have my midpoint. Perfect. Now, since I have my midpoint, what do I need? I need the distance in between and the direction so I can move this at the amount that I have here. Now, the thing is, I don't measure this because I have a component here that it can be changed all the time. I don't want to create something for specific parameter. I want it to be parametric. When I change it, it should change also. So in this case, I need to find this distance. Now, important is I have now point which I'm going to call midpoint and show the name. And then here I have one more point. That's my origin. And I name it origin. Yes. Now I bring this here. And here is an example why it's looking ugly. Now I right click, wire display hidden. So I just only see my two beautiful components and not ugly lines. Now I want to have the distance between them. And as a bonus, I want to have actually a line so I can later on use it as a vector for direction. So I double click and I type in line. And as you know, when we use line, we just need to define a line. When it's this black icon, we have to define the line. We cannot give inputs. If I put this one, I create line between 2 points. It's just written underneath. And if I choose a SDL, then I give a vector as a direction, and then I have a starting point and I have the length. So this one I don't want to use. I want to use point between, so line between 2 points. So I want to move it from this direction, from this point towards this point. So this one should be my start point. I put it here. I take this down and I place it to the end point.
I'm sorry, I missed the step how you made the origin copy. Or is it
Oh, yes.
copy?
I called here point, create the point component.
Mm-hmm.
I placed my point
Okay.
into there. I renamed it. I moved it there and I hit the line.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I have my line here. Now I can turn on my polygon so I see it. What do I want to do now? I think I have all the important stuff. Maybe one more thing. I need the length. So I type in length and I get my curve length. So I know how much is this line. What do I need to do now? No ideas? Okay. I need to move it. I mean, I know I have all the information. Now I need to move it. I type in move. And here it is. I can put a geometry and I can give a motion and it moves. Perfect. So what do I want to move? I want to move my polygon. So my geometry is my polygon. In this case, I can create a copy by copy pasting this p-rep here. And I can place it here. Yes. This still looks ugly, so I'm going to hide it. And let's take this here where my other stuff are. So emotion. Motion is important. Like to give a motion, I need to have a vector. In many cases, we would use unit X, Y, or Z. So if I put unit Y, and if I give a number slider, I move it towards the Y axis. If I put unit X, I move it in the X direction. But I want neither of them. I want to move it just exactly where this line goes, because it will change. When I go to a heptagon, it's going to go from a different angle. So my line is going to be my motion. This is going to be my vector. So I come here to the vector tab. I click on the vector, the last one, and I go amplitude. That's the new component for us, amplitude. Now, right now I can define a vector, which is going to be my line to give my direction. That's my direction. And then I'm going to use my number slider to give an amplitude. That's how far it should move. And I connect my vector to the motion. Now, as you see right now, it moves exactly the way I want. If I make it a heptagon, it still does the same. So right now I have a successful parametric object, but we are not done yet. First of all, I don't want to just randomly move that. I want to move it from this point to this point. So I need this distance, and luckily we have that. So amplitude is my length. As you see right now, this middle point is sitting exactly on the origin. I don't need that number slide. I can move this a little bit. Here. Now I want to ask you all, how is the tempo? Is it too fast? Is it too complicated? What do you think?
Just a little bit. Can you zoom back in?
Yeah, it's a little bit fast.
A little bit, yes.
Just a bit.
All
Yeah.
right. So I will slow down, but let me ask then, until here, something was unclear?
Yes, why we need a panel? I don't understand that.
This one
Yes.
but I just put it so we can see there is a list and which item I am selecting. So to
Oh, okay.
understand how the list item works. But we
So
don't
without
actually,
that, it works, right?
yes,
Yeah, it
for
works,
example,
yeah.
this curve, I don't also need. I
Okay.
sometimes use panels to see or if my items are the way I want. So for example, if I have series of numbers, I connect it to a panel and I control if all the numbers are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions? It can be anything, like any part that you didn't understand, or if you didn't understand at all. Okay, I will slow down a little bit. First of all, now I want almost everything I want, except one thing. I need to turn it. It's just right now changing its direction whenever I change my segment. And it goes from left to right. Luckily, the hexagon sits perfectly, but I mean, it's not parametric if it's not only for one item. So in this case, I want to rotate it, right? I double click. I type in rotate. There are lots of items, but this is the one I want, the first one. And here I have a geometry input, which I'm going to connect my geometry to. I have an angle, which is using gradients or in the original version. So I can create degrees by just clicking on this. All right, now I'm not doing that. And I need a plane. By plane, which means at what point I want to take as my anchor point and rotate the object. Right now it's origin. Let me just move my object a little bit. As you see, they go totally different places because it's right now 90 degrees. And if this item is here, the other one is here. So it's rotating around the origin. But I don't want it to rotate around the origin. Where do I want it to rotate around? Any ideas? Where do I want to have my anchor point so it rotates as I want? Oh, that's not a really difficult one. I want to rotate this object so this line sits on this line. I need to take the middle point again. So that's my middle point. So wherever I go, I can make it horizontal, that this middle point is my anchor point. So if I turn it 30 degrees, this side will turn 30 degrees as well. So I already have my middle point here. I'm just creating a copy of it. That's my anchor. That's my plane right now. Yeah, that's the thing. That's not my point, because that was my mistake, that I took this midpoint from the previous one. Now that's a great example. When we do something, when we move an object, let me turn these all on. Right now I have lots of stuff, but don't worry about that. When I move something, when I do my steps, it always creates something new. The previous one is not changed. This is not changed at all. It just creates something new. It just creates something new, something new, something new. So this midpoint is here, but when I move it, this point doesn't come. This point is in the past. So it stays here. I need to find this middle point. Luckily, I don't have to find the midpoint, because there is one thing that's all my objects are based is my origin. My origin is always at the correct spot wherever I go. So in this case, I take my origin, not my midpoint. That was my mistake. So I take the origin and I put it as my plane. And let me turn these all off so you are not confused. Okay.
Please, every time you turn off something, just say that what you're turning off, because I'm for example miss it and then I don't know what exactly went off.
You're correct. I selected everything. I turned everything off. I came here to my last two geometries and I turned them on like this. That's it. The rest is turned off. Now here, it rotates it around this point. So right now it's 90 degrees, so it sits on here and it rotates at 90 degrees here. Now, when I said that the Grasshopper is not an architectural software, but rather a mathematical one, you have to think always mathematically to get something. So in this case, to find my angle, I need to know which angle I want. So that's, I am terrible at drawing with mouse, but let me try. You don't have to draw this. I'm just drawing to show. So this is my point, right? And I am rotating this object around this line. Now, what I want to do is that this object sits like this. So to do that, I need to know this angle. This angle. So this is my horizontal axis from this point, and this is my edge. Now this part can be a little bit complicated. That's why before I continue, please say if there is something you didn't understand how it worked until now.
My image now looks different to yours. Both of my figures, they sit in the center and they turn around this exact middle point. Like when I change the amount of edges, it all turns around the center.
Yeah. My question is, first of all, did you change the
No, I didn't change those. It's just there's a 0. Ah,
yeah,
okay.
when you change it, it would change probably. If not,
Okay, good.
is it changing?
Yeah. When you
Okay.
change it, it moves. Yeah.
Okay, then great. So, my angle, yeah. When it's a pentagon, it's kind of misleading because this seems like the correct form right now, but it's not. So let's go to heptagon. Yeah, anyways, it's all sets. Now to find the angle. Let me go back to the pentagon. It's easier with less edges. Actually, we can also go to, anyways, let's stay there. So what I said is I need to find this horizontal axis first. That is always going to be this horizontal axis, not this x-axis. And I need to find this line. Now I have my origin point and I want to create a vector that goes in this direction. Now, what I did there before was creating a plane and creating a vector from that. Now, here I want to be clear why I'm doing this. So if I create a unit x vector, this unit x vector is from the word xy plane. So actually, this is starting from here. But I don't want it to start from here. I want this to be my starting point. So that's why I need actually a plane. So I come here and I write plane xy. Right now, its origin is the word origin. So this is actually word xy plane. But if I change the origin, now this is the word xy. This is my new xy plane. I mean, you can see here. Now the second thing is, let's check out here so I don't miss out anything. Yes, this plot. I will explain that. A vector, as you know, it cannot be a 0. It has to have a direction and it has to be minimum 1. So if I have this point here and if I have a plane, when I add it as a factor, it just gives me a number. It doesn't give me anything else. It just gives me a number, which is not one of the coordinates or anything. It's just a random number according to the direction. So that's why it's very important that if I have it 0, if I have it completely 0, I may have a problem because my unit vector is actually 0, which I don't want to. So in this case, I just create +1, an addition. So I want it to have at least minimum 1. That doesn't have to be a specific number because I'm just giving a direction. -1 is the minus direction, so the left direction in x-axis, and plus is the right direction in the x-axis. So if I have 0 + 1 in this case, I will get at least 1. So my direction will be defined. So it's going to the right side, not to the left side or not broken. Now, the next step is connecting it to a vector. Now it has to be a vector now because I want to give a certain length so I can find the angle there. I come here and I type in vector amplitude, yes, or vector. I go here up there and select amplitude. Under the vector tab, subcategory vector, amplitude. Now I connect my unit vector first as my vector, and then I connect my amplitude, which is right now random number, so we can give 500. It doesn't matter how much it is, it just needs to be bigger than 1. And then we are not connecting to the angle. This is not a angle. We just found out that there is a line over there. I'm just doing it to show right now, so you don't have to repeat what I do at this moment. I'm just showing what it is. So when I move that here, my vector is right now going in this X direction, but taking this plane as the base point. I know it's a little bit complicated. That's why it would be nice maybe later on if you watch the video again. But I don't know how to explain it easier. It's kind of mathematical understanding a little bit. So here right now I have my vector, and I want to find my angle between this line and that vector. So I have my line somewhere here, this one. No, not that one. Turn this off. So I want to have this line. I need to use list item again. You remember, I think. This is my geometry, and I want to select this edge. So I repeat a previous step. I right click, I write brep, deconstruct brep. I put this here. I have my all edges right now. And then I go here, list item, one more time. I connect my edges, and I give my index again, -2. I just repeated the same step that we have done here. Exactly the same step. I just didn't create this extra brep component because it was unnecessary in this case. But same, I have a geometry. I want to select an edge of it. I create deconstruct brep, so I can select the edges actually. And then from out of 6, 7, 5 edges, I want to select one of them, which is the 2 previous before the first one. So I write as the index -2. Now I selected that, and right now I have one line and one vector. So I want to find the angle between them. So I double click and I type angle. Now I have vector A, vector B, and a plane, which we already know my plane is going to be this plane that I created lately. I have my first vector, but let's create a curve first to be sure that it's a curve, and then connect my vector. This can be a line. It doesn't have to be a vector because any line is also considered as a vector in this case. My plane, I want to use hidden lines. So I right click on plane, I go to wire display and hidden. And then I connect my vector B to the second one. Now I get an angle. So this is not the angle in degrees, this is an angle in radians. So when I connect this, it's going to find the correct angle and my task will be completed. Now, to understand that better, the angle here I have is a radian is like 0.314 something. So if I want to know what that is, I can write here radians, opposite. I write here degrees. So I can connect this angle to the radian and I get my degree, which is 18 degrees in this case. So if I want to connect my degrees instead of radians, which is not going to change anything, just showing that if you have degrees, how you can change it. You can connect the degrees and you can right click on the angle and you can select degrees. So it knows that it's not a radian, but it's a degree. The panel we don't need again. So I turn everything off and I only have my final result. Now let's control if everything works. Hexagon works, heptagon works, octagon works, and the rest works. This is what I wanted. And I can move my point anywhere and it moves. If in 3D, if I change my Z, it still moves. If I change my radius, it still changes. Of course, it cannot be 0. And it works in every form. Now, I want to check if it works in 0, 0, 0, which sometimes can cause problems, but in this case, it doesn't. So it's right now perfectly what I wanted. Now, before I show the last part where I create my tool with that, are there any questions? It can be anything. It can be about any step.
Could you please repeat the last step?
About the angles?
Yes.
All right. From which part should I begin? Which part wasn't clear? Just finding the angle or creating the vector and everything?
The radians, degrees, at the
Okay.
end.
So I had my line as a curve and I had my vector. Unfortunately, the vector doesn't show, but I typed in angle to get the angle. This is the correct tool, correct component, not this one. This one is a plugin. So I need to put a plane. So that knows in which plane it measures the angle. So that's the plane I created before here. And then I hit that wire. That's the first step. Until here it's clear, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now as my first vector, I put my curve. And as my second vector, I put my vector that I created. So in return, I'm just going to create a panel to show that I have 6 point something, but this is definitely not not a degree. It's a radian. So radians and degrees are basically two ways to show a angle. So in this case, it automatically takes as an angle. And usually the angle here in the component is radians as well. So when you look at it, it says 0 times 5, so 0.5 times pi. So if I connect it directly, it works because it's already radians. So I don't need to change anything. I just connect it. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay.
But
But
my polygon stays not so good like yours, not on the X.
okay. Can you share your screen so I see exactly what the problem is? By the way, what was your name? I didn't see your name when you were speaking.
Cengiz is my name.
Okay,
So
I see
like-
right now. So I give permission to share screen.
yes.
Now you can share.
See?
Yes. Can you first zoom into the top view?
Sorry?
Can you zoom into the top view? Not in the grasshopper, but in the rhino. Yes. It actually looks correct. So can you, in the Grasshopper, can you turn off all the previews except the last one?
Oh, okay.
It's correct.
It works.
I
Yes.
think you just misunderstood because there were lots of on
Yeah.
previews on.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's better to show that it can happen to anyone. Yes. So I reshare my screen. Okay, and yeah, when I connect it, it works. I don't have to change it to the degrees. I just turn it so you see that it's a possibility. Let's turn this plane to the hidden line. So, any other questions? No. All right, then we are going to the last step, which is an easy one. I want to create a tool out of this. First of all, I select everything. I right click and I group. Now, this is right now group, so I can move this around however I want. I can change the color of the group by going to the right click, color, and then here I can define any colors and transparency. And I can name it. Polygon, I name it. So it has a name. Now, what I want to do is now create a tool out of that. That's a component that's, as I created here, I have X, Y, Z coordinates to give in. I have a radius and I have segments and I get a geometry. So in this case, I'm just not going to use this. So I select everything one more time. I copy it and I paste it and I move it down. So I have a copy of the exact same component. I turn off the first one. Totally preview is turned off. Now, here, I want to have some inputs, which are, these are the 5 inputs that I want actually, exactly these 5. And I want one output, which is my geometry. If I want, I can get other outputs as well, but right now what I want is the geometry. So I go here, sorry, I just need to get rid of this zoom thing here. It's bothering me. But anyways, I go here to params and I go here to the utility, the util, the last one. And here I have cluster output and cluster input. I pick the cluster output and I put my geometry in it. That's it. That's my output. I can change the name. I can put the description by double clicking it, but I'm not changing anything. So it's exactly the same as that one. And I go back here, again, utility under params, and I select cluster input. Now I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. So I copy and paste 4 times until I have 5 pieces. Now, first one I want to put in the segments. It's going to give an error. Don't worry about that because we are no longer giving any segments, any numbers. So it's not going to like that, but it's okay for now. I put it to the radius, the second one. Now I have my Z, I have my Y, and I have my X. I created one extra, I delete that. So it can stay right now like this. If I want to add those, I select everything. I right click on my group and click add to group. So whatever is not in the group is right now added. In this case, I can erase these number sliders. I don't need them anymore. That's it. Now, I select everything one more time. By everything, I mean our component, last one, last group. I right click and I click on cluster. Now it's a little box with my script inside. So when I put in some coordinates or some information, let me copy paste these. X, Y, Z, radius, and segments. As you see, everything I have done here, I can just now control with only this small object. So what I did was pretty simple idea. We have cluster input and cluster output parameters. I put the cluster inputs, everything that I want to change, every parameter I want to include in my tool. And I want to output to everything that I want to get at the end. Every information that I want to get at the end, I put an output. If you want, you can get the angle. If you want, you can get the vector direction, anything. If you want, you can get the edge length. It's up to you. In this case, what I have here is just 5 inputs and 1 output. And then I get this component. Why am I showing this? Because later on, you can use this method to actually save up some space when you have so many items and it gets complicated. So you know this works perfectly now. So you can actually make it a cluster so you can keep it aside. So now,
Sorry, can you
yes.
please show once again, how did you do the cluster?
Yes, I go back. From the input and output, or just to how to make it the last step?
So I had everything grouped. It's like it also has all the same color now with input and output.
Yes.
After that, yeah.
So you have put the inputs and outputs,
Mhm.
and lots of things are orange. I select everything on that group. I right click somewhere, anywhere, and I have this button called cluster.
Okay, yeah, worked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the last task is the fun part, is actually putting it here as my own tool. Right now it's not there. It's just cluster. So I go here to file. First of all, I select my cluster. I go to file. I click create user object. I select my cluster. I click on file. I click on create user object. Now these are just anything you want. So you can name it, let's say polygon, a nickname is poly. There is a description if you want to type in, I don't want to. And a category that you can put it in any category you want. You can put it in transform, surface, params, where if you want to easily access that, you can put it in the params. I think that's in the first tab. Let's put it in the params. And you can create a subcategory or pick one of the subcategories that was already there. So I put it in the input, for example, and then I can give it an icon. I'm not going to click that because I have too many icons right now, but I'm just going to select a different color for my box. But you can select any item within this grasshopper file, or you can click on this and use your own icon if you have any specific icon. I click OK. And under params, under input, I have my polygon. As you see, this is now a tool for me. All right. That's it from my perspective for today. Now I can take your questions, either about the tutorium, either about what we did right now, or about the course, about anything.
Okay, I have one question. We have a course tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Yes,
I
we have a
think so.
course tomorrow. It's going to be also like a lecture tomorrow, or
No, for a while you are not going to get lectures, like live lectures. Let me check the termin plan again. Dienstag, Mittwoch. So tomorrow is the 14th, right? So tomorrow you have a video from Martin. Martin is going to probably send you an email. I think that's how he does that. He is sending you an email with a link that you can download a tutorial video, that you download it and you watch it. But either case, you are either going to get a link for Zoom meeting or a video link to download. It's highly possible that it's a video. And you don't have to participate. It says online, so I doubt it's a Zoom, because for the Zoom ones, it says Zoom.
okay, so it's like not a presence video. We're just going to get link and we will have to do basically like homework stuff.
Yes, they are like homework / that educative videos. Like it's suggested that you do them so you understand how Rhino
Yeah, just the question was because there is a particular time, so I assumed we would need to be there present at 9 o'clock in the morning.
No, I don't think so, but still expect something at 9. So it's
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to ask as a feedback, how was the general tutorium? I know that it was a little bit fast. I will work on making it slower and which parts to actually slow down. But how was it in general? Was it helpful?
Yes, it was very good.
It's interesting. It seems very mathematical. It's something I personally never use, but it's interesting to know it.
I want to mention a little bit like where I use it, like in the profession. It's not quite often used. That's something, because it's a mathematical tool, as you said, and in certain tasks, like if you need to create an Ausführungsplan, Einheitsplanung, or any kind of planning, any kind of Entwurf, you don't actually need to use that much mathematics. So it's, of course, a little bit used in the abstract forms, like that Zaha Hadid architects use, or like Foster and partners use, that you can create complex forms and actually know what you are drawing. You are not just drawing randomly a curve. It has a mathematics. So later on, for the calculations, for statistical calculations, for any kind of analysis, it's easier to control. And with this, you can create really complex forms as well. That's the main idea. What I use it for is called Rhino inside Revit. That's a Revit plugin that allows you to open Rhino inside the Revit and get spatial Grasshopper components for Revit. There you can actually create certain Revit elements that usually in Revit takes really a lot of time to create. So that's the way that I'm right now trying to implement in the Büroarbeit.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always the best efficient method, but it's worth looking into it, I find. Because it can also be used with AI in later phases, and so it's interesting stuff. Okay.
Does this also exist for Archicad?
Yes, actually, It doesn't have a specific plugin like Revit, but ArchiCAD and Grasshopper has some kind of connection, like from the developer wise, I think that Grasshopper can be actually used in ArchiCAD, like Rhino.
Okay, nice.
For that, you need to type in like ArchiCAD for sorry, Grasshopper for ArchiCAD, and you will get a download link and something like that. So you download it and you have your ArchiCAD plugin for Grasshopper.
Yeah, it's in the graphics of homepage. Just like type Grasshopper.
Yeah, I never used the ArchiCAD version because I don't use ArchiCAD, but I think it's also worth looking into. So any other questions about today's lecture, about the next lecture, or about the course in general? Have you looked into your projects? Do you have any idea how you are going to manage it?
Do you have any tips on how to find floor plans or section views besides the internet?
Besides the internet, there is only one option, which is emailing the firm. In many cases, especially because they are very famous buildings and very large firms, I'm not sure if you're going to get a reply, but we're trying. Other than that, internet is the only option, I think. And there's the YouTube tutorials, like there are people who are actually mimicking those buildings, even though if they don't have the exact floor plan, you can check out what methods they use and what kind of direction they follow. So you can try to follow the same direction as creating the form, understanding the form. For some questions that I think I saw on Studo, that in the Endabgabe for your presentation, it's expected everything. Of course, that's the best result that you can get if you get to do everything right. The construction system, the floors, the details and everything. Of course, not the actual construction details, but like at least the floors are there, at least the windows are there and everything. But the main idea, what's the most important thing is that the geometry is correct. That's the like basic task. You have to get the geometry correct somehow. Your process matters. So showing your Grasshopper or your Rhino file and also during the lectures, it's very important. So we see that you have a direction that you're going, that in that direction, you can actually achieve something, but you are missing out some points. In that case, you are good. It's fine. So we just need to see that there is a process, there is a methodology that you follow, there is a strategy. It actually shows us if you care or not. And at the end, for example, for my case, I did the Al Bahar Towers and I didn't make the structure. I just didn't model it. I just put it as an information because the main idea about my building was that it had this kinetic facade. It had this complex shape, not complex, but it has this curvy shape. And that was it. That was the most important part. And I made the panels. I made them actually movable, that if I change the parameters, the panels were moving. So that was enough. That was what important was about the building. So it got me a 1. But if you model something that's really irrelevant about the building, if it's a very simple structural system and that you model it, I don't think it would affect that much how you actually made the complete Abgabe. That's one point I wanted to clear because many people can get stressed about like how the interior should be, how the construction system should be and stuff. What important is what important about the building. Any other questions? By the way, thanks Daria for posting the add-ons?
No problem.
Okay, I think we don't have any more questions. I believe in the later meetings, after you started working on your projects, there will be more questions, but we will see. And in the meantime, I will try to work on the speed of the lectures. Okay, thank you for coming today, and thank you for taking your time and participating. And we see each other next week. I will send another email.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.